Hello, I am Paloma López. I am an AmeriCorps member, and this year I'm working with the NHCC, the Visual Arts Department. And we are very lucky today to have Pamela Enriquez-Courts with us for our first ever artist interview. So Pamela, please introduce yourself.
Uh, Hi, my name is Pamela Enriquez-Courts. I am a self-taught artist, currently living in Las Cruces. I've been here for about 20 years, but I originally come from Southern California, all of Los Angeles and Los Angeles counties. So that is where I grew up and that is what I know. But my family, my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents come from Las Cruces. So we moved here about 20 years ago, just the opportunity came up and I love it. I love living here. This feels like home.
Awesome. So we just have a few questions to ask
Okay.
and answer whatever you're comfortable answering.
Okay.
And if you have something that I don't bring up that you'd like to include, by all means, please include it.
Okay.
So the first question is, why do you make art?
Well, you know what? I originally didn't start out making art, but the creativity has always been there. Um, I had a pretty rough start in life. I was a single parent, survivor of an abusive marriage, and always struggling, always working, always struggling. Um, and when you don't have money, when there's no funds of it readily available, you can't get a lot of things. But the one thing that I am really grateful for, I lived in poverty for a long time, is that poverty is a great motivator to create things. And I had to learn how to create. I had to learn how to decorate my house so it was decent. It had an appearance if I had a guest. I had to learn how to clothe my children. So I learned how to sew and I learned how to use the dollar stores and the fabric stores and the thrift stores. And that was how I actually started becoming creative. When we moved to Las Cruces about 20 years ago, I met my husband, my current husband, and we actually were at a point when we came here where my husband said, "Why don't you take a year off, Pam? You've been working 25 plus years. Take a year off." And he gave me that year off, and it took about one day before I was dying of boredom, and I just went out and started looking at the art markets, looking at the local farmers market, just seeing what people were creating, and I got very inspired to start creating my own things, and I started out at farmers market. I started making little decoupage plaques, little plaques with things that I love. I've always been, as it sounds so cliche, but I am such a Frida Kahlo fan. When I was 16 years old, my best friend gave me a book on Frida Kahlo. I had never heard of her before. And he just said, he goes, "Pam, I really think you should read this book." And it was the biography, right? Biography written by Hayden Herrera. And he said, "I think you'll really like this." And ever since then, I have just loved all things Frida. And I started decoupaging little plaques of Frida Kahlo and selling them at farmers market for $5. And from there, it just exploded almost. It's like I couldn't make enough things. And just the pure enjoyment and satisfaction from creating art, and then to see that people actually liked what I was doing and were willing to take $5 out and actually purchase it. It's exciting. It's exciting. Um, but that was actually how I started making art. And from that point, it grew. It grew from using other people's artwork to inspire and enhance. And my own ideas started coming out. And I started thinking, I can do this. I've got ideas. I've got passions. I've got things I want to express. And that's where it started. It's like I got my paints, I got my canvas, and I started painting. And things just really, really grew. And I've been doing this for professionally for about 15 years now. And I've gone from a farmer's market table for $5. And I just sold a painting at a gallery last week for $2,000. And that's really for me like, wow. I still never, the surprise never stops. I'm always amazed that people get something from my artwork.
Like that's just like an incredible story, like an incredible journey that you can kind of
It's
like track over the years. It's amazing.
yes, yes.
So you've mentioned a little bit maybe, but if you could go a little bit more into who and maybe what inspires you in your art, in your creating.
Yeah. I found that originally I was trying to create with a focus on selling, bringing in some extra income. But as I sold, I started meeting more people. And people feel they have a, it feels like almost like a trust in artists. They come and they tell me stories. They tell me stories about uh, their grandparents or stories about their children. And when they tell me these stories, it's already visualized in my head. They're telling me the story and I'm already picturing it in my mind and thinking, oh my gosh, that's a wonderful story. I'd love to make a painting out of that, or inspired by their stories. So I find that my inspiration comes from people and their stories. And my inspiration also comes from what I see around me. And it's always the human story, always, that inspires me to create all of my work.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you've sort of spoken a little bit about where you get your inspiration and maybe how idea sparks for you, but what does your process look like throughout the whole creation of a piece?
My process is so unconventional. I am a self-taught artist. Um, I see my artist friends who are just amazing. They think it in their head, they plan it out on their canvas. They will sketch the full idea from their head onto canvas, uh, every detail, and then begin painting. And it's just this beautiful, perfect step process. That's not me. I picture it in my head and I get a canvas, and the first thing I draw are the faces. I don't, I kind of, oh, it's so chaotic the way I start painting. I start with very simple circular images that will represent the placement of the faces, and then I paint the faces. Because if my faces aren't correct with what I have in my head, if they don't match up, then it's just not going to fly. So often you'll find the beginning of a painting is just a canvas with 4 faces on there, and that's it. And then I go from there. I'll sketch out one body at a time. There is just no rhyme or reason to how I paint, but this is how I've been painting for 15 years and it works. So, yeah, it's just chaotic. That's all.
Yeah, if it works, why change it? I do wonder, when you do your faces, are they just faces, are they faces that are people in your life? Do you just come up with them in your mind? I just sort of wonder about that.
No, sometimes I will print a face. I'll see an interesting face, on the computer. Um, but the majority of time they're just faces that I come up with, and I don't have the specific details in mind, but what I do have is I want this face to be very strong, or I want it to look like it hurts. It's more important to have emotion. The face comes out however it comes out. Um, but each face is about emotion. Anger. Anger is another face, that I do. I want to do a strong face. So it's all about the emotion that I want the character or the image to portray. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
not so much about details as much as about emotion.
So you've been starting with faces for the whole time you've been painting,
Yes.
but in what ways has your practice, not necessarily just your technique, but your sort of practice as a whole, how has that evolved over time, do you think?
My practice, it's evolved. Mm, it truly has evolved in that um, there was a time when I had an image in my head for a painting, and I was very unsure as to whether I could pull it off. Um, Sometimes I would start a painting with a specific idea in mind, and I'd start creating it, and I'd get the face down, and I'd start moving to the body and to whatever action I wanted that body doing. Um, and just realize that, nope, can't do it, can't do it. It's not coming out right. Well, I don't do that anymore. It's like, I know now for some, it's so weird. The confidence is really built is that once I get the image in my head, I know I can paint it. I don't even doubt myself anymore. I think it has to do with just a growing confidence in my own skill and knowing that I have been doing this long enough that I can pretty much paint whatever I want and it's going to be pretty good. So, but that doesn't stop me from continuing to always improve. You know, there's an artist that I admire and that follow, and he always, one of his phrases was, practice makes proficient. And that's basically how life should be. It's just like, it's always practice, practice, practice. You know, if you ever reach the point where you don't need practice anymore, might be time to start looking for something else then. You know, there's always room for improvement. So everything I do, I think the improvement has just really is very clear if you see any of my older works. So it's practice.
So I guess going off of that, where do you see your practice going in the future, or is there a direction you would like to take it in moving forward?
Oh gosh, yeah. You know, right now, because I'm a working artist, I work because I need the income. Um, if it were up to me, if I didn't need that income, if I reached a point where I was retired, you know, and getting my Social Security and able to pay all my bills, all of my work would undoubtedly be political and focused on current issues. Um, there are so many things to fight for, and it's weird. But when I was younger, you know, life was just in the way. You know, I was having babies and working and trying to keep everything together. And I was pretty much alone for the first, you know, young 20 years of my life, you know, raising two children. And that's a very hectic and chaotic and busy life. And at this point, I still have to work and I still have to bring in an income every month. But my gosh, the day when I don't have to worry about this anymore, I just really have I have ideas in my mind that I want and need the time. I need time. I need freedom. I need to, I always tell my husband, I need a wife. I need a wife to take care of my home and to take care of my kids. You know, I have an adult special needs daughter and she lives with us. And I just said, I need a wife to take care of everything so I can just paint all day. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, right? Glass of wine, beret, paint all day. But anyways, I would like to just really paint things that are in my mind, the things that I've seen, because I think they're relevant to what's going on today and maybe been going on for a long time here. So.
Well, that's awesome, and I hope you get the chance to do that sooner rather than later. Um, so I guess sort of in that same vein, what sort of in the broader context of the art world, what do you think are some of the things facing artists right now that excite you or challenge you?
Oh, What's exciting is to see the emergence of so many artists. Before, it seemed like it was such an elite group. It seemed like, mm, I don't know, to me, anyways, what I saw was the art world was pretty cliquey. It just seemed like there were certain groups of people who acted the part and who looked the part, you know. But now, oh my gosh, young artists, they just excite me. Graffiti artists, oh my gosh, I love graffiti artists. Just the freedom and the passion to create graffiti art. I envy it so much. I envy it, but I love it and admire it. Um, Young artists excite me. New ideas, outspoken, um, their passion, just really to me. And I think they're getting more publicity. Media definitely helps for them to put themselves out there. And the emergence of not only young artists, but also artists of color, you know, long overdue that there's finally getting to be some recognition there, for artists of color and for what they have to say. And the drawback to that, though, what I've also found is that I still don't believe there's enough recognition for female artists. The art world is so dominated by male artists, but yet there are just as many females creating artwork. We're out there, we're pounding away at the canvas and the paints and the sculptures and the mixed media pieces, but we're not getting paid for the work, in my opinion, like men are. We're not getting the attention like male artists do, and we're not getting the respect. I still can't help but feel that we're seen as crafters and hobbyists and dabblers, whereas a man artist tends to be taken far more seriously. That's been my personal experience, and it's frustrating. It's really frustrating because I know we're as good or better. I know a lot of wonderful female artists. I am so happy to know two women who opened a very successful gallery together in Phoenix. But they are the only female galleries I know, gallery owners that I know. I don't know any other female gallery owners, and I know quite a few galleries. So that's frustrating. We are trying to break through, but I don't think we're getting the respect that's deserved. And just real quick, so many of us, we have other commitments. We have children, we have special needs children, we have homes to take care of. We do have to do, a lot of us still have to get dinner on the table at 5 o'clock every day. And yet we still manage to create. We still manage to put out, to put our hearts and our emotions, and then we just have to turn it off to go do what needs to be done. The wash is piling up. Got to go do the wash, So that goes back to my "I need a wife" comment. But that's the most frustrating thing, is that females, I don't believe, are respected and taken seriously in the arts.
And unfortunately, that's just always sort of been the case.
Yes.
Do you sort of see a shift? Do you see a change coming, or is
No.
it just too slow?
You know what? I see that we're fighting harder. I see that women are getting themselves out there through social media. They're doing it on their own, though. We're not doing it with anybody's help. So it's a slow process, I guess, like everything else that's so deeply ingrained. The sexism is just so deeply ingrained in this country. It's just as bad as the racism. It's going to be hard to root it out, and it's going to be hard to get people to change their minds. but little by little, I do see, it just feels like one step forward and two steps back, but just keep going forward, adelante. That's always been my thing. Adelante, come on, you can do it. So it's a battle. My gosh, it's a battle. But yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Do you listen to music when you create art? And if you do, what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny because I read that question. I'm like, oh my gosh, the music. I'm very I listen to music all the time. I've got my premium Spotify and I'm always making playlists. I listen to absolutely everything. And I know everybody says, oh, I like all kinds of music. No, I like all kinds of music. I listen, if I'm feeling good, it's Broadway show tunes because I like to blast them and sing. Are you serious?
I love a show tune.
Yes, me too. I'm just like, and I have a terrible voice, but I don't care because I'll sing out loud and I'm all painting, and I'm singing, something from Wicked or something from one of the older. I love the old musicals. I love Damn Yankees. That's one of my favorite soundtracks. So if you've never heard it, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. But I just love the musicals. But I love women of the blues from the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. These are women who are lusty, body, not afraid to be themselves. And they're singing about it. They're singing about it. And to me, that's very inspiring because anytime a woman is doing something she's not supposed to be doing or behaving in a way she's not supposed to behave, I get inspired. So I seriously listen to everything, though. I will sometimes listen to movie soundtracks. I listen to my 70s music because I grew up in the 70s. Yes, I like Linda Ronstadt and James Taylor and all my 70s old people music. But I also like a little bit of rap. I do enjoy listening to political activism music. That's usually when I'm pissed off. I've got an activist playlist, that's got some Gil Scott-Heron and Clash and and Billy Bragg. But I listen to a huge variety of music. So I truly do love music and I love it all.
That's so awesome. Does the piece that you're working on sort of dictate what type of music you're listening to, or is it just whatever's coming at you at that time?
Yes, it does. I know we were going to go to one of my paintings, my Ni Una Mas. When I first had learned about the missing and murdered women of Juarez, I couldn't believe it. Somebody had told me, somebody was talking to me about it, and she had said she was going to build an altar at Day of the Dead. And I said, what is that for? With the pink flowers and crosses. And she's from Juarez herself. And she told me, and I said, what? And she says, yeah, she goes, that there's just hundreds, possibly thousands of missing and murdered women. There's an ongoing issue. And I jumped on the computer and I started researching. And I came across this amazing documentary, which right offhand, I can't remember the name of it, but it's on YouTube and it's in several different parts. And what it does is it interviews the mothers of the women who are missing or whose bodies have been found. And the documentary was just heartbreaking and eye-opening. And of all the other info there is out there about the women of Juarez, it's kind of iffy, but this one I believed because it came straight from the mothers. And what I saw was that the only ones who were fighting for these women were the mothers. The police, lied and continue to lie about it. These women were not getting any answers as to what happened to their daughters. So they took to the streets. And as a mother of two daughters, it hit me right in everything. What must that even feel like to know that your daughter to not know where your daughter is when she doesn't come home from work, you know. But it was these women, and they were all the mothers who were fighting to find out, who were fighting to demand that the police do something to find their daughters. And that's what inspired Ni Una Mas as I read about it. And then they also, I don't know that people talk about this, but a lot of American corporations have moved to Mexico and Juarez, Chihuahua, to avoid paying taxes. Big corporations, we're talking, IBM, Canon, names that we know here. They hire young women to work for them. And a lot of the women who were disappearing worked for these American corporations. They were being bussed home and they just never got off the bus from work, from when they worked at these late shifts often. And I found the list of all these American companies that were there in Juarez who had young women working for them. And there were just dozens of them. And I knew all the names. And I thought, that this is happening in our own backyard. And we have to hold some kind of accountability, some kind of responsibility for this. I mean, our corporations are moving to Mexico to avoid paying taxes, and they're not taking any accountability or responsibility for their workers who are disappearing, and I just got really angry thinking about how this could happen. How could it happen that the city of Juarez, which is only 40 minutes away from my home, comes to be known as the place most likely to murder a woman and get away with it? That just horrified me and angered me. So I came home and I had this image in my mind. I had this image. I am a Catholic, and my roots are always, no matter how far I stray from my church and how much I disagree with what they do, my roots are there. And Our Lady of Guadalupe to me represents everything that I go to her when I'm helpless, and I am helpless to help these women. So I saw her and I thought, she's the only one who can protect, who can save. Not save their lives because it's too late for that, but to maybe give comfort. I came home and I painted Ni Una Mas, and I was furious. I painted that painting in one night. I was raging, and I wanted to paint her strong and enough for her to comfort those who needed comforting. But I also wanted to make it cold because the factories are burning away in the background, making money, making product. But what's happening is women are being murdered. It's almost like they're plucking them out of there, because they're easy targets. It's just another woman, they all look the same, Nobody was standing up for them except their mothers. It was just infuriating. So the painting came about. It was not thought out in my head. I just knew I wanted to paint my anger and my frustration. I wanted to point fingers at corporations who were profit over people. I wanted to point fingers at the police who were bumbling around and lying. The foreground of my painting is broken land, and there are these bugs called niños de la tierra. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are in English.
I think they might just be children of the earth in English.
Oh, is that
actually.
okay? Is that what they would call them?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, but they niños de la tierra, to me, I grew up with them all over the place. They're just these little ugly. They're harmless, but they're ugly and bumbling. And I believe they're blind. And I just thought these cops, they're just like these big old bumbling bugs. That's all. They're useless. So I have my Niños de la Tierra and the Broken Land. And that painting was absolutely, it was probably the first painting I ever did that was done with so much passion and so much anger and frustration. And that's usually how my political pieces come out. Something breaks almost in me, and I need to get it out, because if I don't get it out, it's going to drive me crazy. So, yeah, we went from music to that, didn't we?
Yeah,
But
I've not had the chance to see it in person, but I do have an image of it in front of me. And I mean, I think you can read all of that sort of power and passion, and it's beautiful.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was the first time when I realized how much power art had. First of all, it kept me from really from losing my mind, because how can I be so close to something happening like that and yet not be able to do anything about it? Sometimes the only kind of activism I can do is by documenting it in my artwork. And I know it's not enough. I know it's not. But if I can tell the story, and if people will look at it and say, what is this about? If I can reach one person who says, this can't be allowed to happen, I have to do something, then it makes the art worthwhile. It doesn't make me feel like I'm doing something, but it just makes me feel like if I can just inspire one person who actually can do something, then I am content with that. And I kind of have to be content with that, because I'm just not in a place where I can do more. And that's also frustrating too. It's, I don't know. Sometimes I get very angry that I didn't become politically aware until I was in my 50s. There's so much to be aware of. And I would encourage young people to get out there and to learn what's happening, and to realize how important politics is, because politics are going to make the laws that govern your life and the lives of your children. And when I hear people say, oh, I don't like politics. Politics are everything. Politics are going to govern you. They're going to run your life. They're going to politics can tell you who you can and can't marry. Don't you want to have a say in that? So I'm 60, and I have physical limitations. What I can do is I can put it down on canvas and hope that it reaches out to people and makes them aware.
Did you want to tell us a little bit about the other piece in the NHCC collection,
Yes.
Justice for All?
Yes. That was when I had heard about, I've heard so many stories about CBP. And I've heard these stories for 15 years. I've heard stories. I had a friend who was in one of the humanitarian groups that used to leave the water jugs out in the desert here. And she would tell me about the Border Patrol harassing them and dumping the water and chasing them away. That was my first eye-opening to Border Patrol. And it's kind of funny, when I first moved here, I had this crazy notion. When I saw brown border patrolmen, Latinos, Hispanics, Chicanos as Border Patrol, I saw them as, oh wow, that's really noble. They want to help. They want to help their gente. They want to help They want to help the people. Well, that turned around real fast because I see them in a different way now. I see when every time I want to go to Hatch to go get some chile or to go get some burgers, I have to pass Border Patrol and I have to answer their questions. And, you know, it just really, it just annoys, and you can blurb this out, it annoys the fuck out of me. It annoys me because I'm just asked a question and just waved right through. When the car behind me, who has brown skinned people, is stopped and pulled over. And I remember writing some letters to Border Patrol and said, what's your requirements for pulling people over? You know, and we have a list that we adhere to. And I remember saying, writing back saying, does that list have anything to do with skin color? Because it became very, very clear that I was being waved through, and other people who did not have my white privilege were not being waved through. So anyways, these are just things that became eye openers just from my side. And I can't even imagine, I've heard the stories from my friends too about the literal harassment, my darker skinned friends from Border Patrol. So that's when the stories started coming out. I started hearing them. And then I started following what was happening with Border Patrol. And when I first heard about the death of Claudia, I heard about it, I believe it was an NPR interview with a woman who was there and had not witnessed the shooting, but she witnessed the direct aftermath. She was in her home and she heard the shooting, and she came running out and she had her phone camera running. And all of a sudden she just started screaming. She said, "You killed her. You killed a girl. You killed her." And Border Patrol was trying to back her away and get her away. But she's all like, "Why did you kill her? Why did you kill her?" So I'm watching this video of this woman who's trying to demand some kind of accountability for why a young girl was shot. And what ended up being the story was that this young girl, Claudia, she had been traveling up, you know, from Guatemala. And this was a woman, you know, my God, she was not even a woman. She was still a teen, really. This was a woman who was already educated and who had a boyfriend living here and who wanted to come up to get a better education. And she crossed across a part that was not a port. And there was some kind of something that ensued. I don't believe what Border Patrol says. They say that she attacked them. The girl was probably about 90 pounds. You know, she was tiny. And he shot her in the face. He shot her in the face. She was not armed. They claim she was throwing rocks. I don't believe that either. And I'm like, really, rocks up against your big gun? But the story, the more I read about the story, the more it was very apparent that the Border Patrol was lying about it, and that probably would have never reported the death if not for the woman who had caught it in the recording. So that was another one that just made me furious. And I thought, there's, I thought that nobody should have to die looking for a better life. And, you know, as the older I get, I love young people. I just do. I love their energy, and I love their power and their passion. And she represented so much promise. She came here looking for a better life. and she would have found a better life, I think. And that would have benefited everybody. You know, when people come here looking for a better life, they're not looking for a handout. You know, they're looking for a hand up. And she would have gone to school, you know, she would have contributed to her community. You know, she would have had possibly a family who contributed to this community in this country, you know, and it was all just ended in a split moment, ended by stupidity and ended by ignorance. And I don't, she could have never foreseen that coming across here would have resulted in a bullet in her head. And to me, that was just a shattering of everything I had ever thought this country stood for. Everything. So I put Claudia as Lady Justice, as Our Lady, what is she called? Lady Justice. And Claudia is, instead of holding a sword, she's holding a machete. And she's holding the scales. And I thought, why doesn't she get, you know, justice? They're because she did something that was maybe considered illegal, that should not result in her death. That one was also another painting that was done in one night. When I had heard the recording and started reading what Border Patrol was saying as opposed to what witnesses were saying, and I knew who was lying. That was also a painting of passion, and I just wanted her to be remembered. I want people to ask about her. I know her family is still waiting for answers. I have tried to reach out to Border Patrol to find out if anything happened with the officer who shot her. There's no response. I can't find any information on if any charges were made against the officer who shot her. And of course, Border Patrol is just mute on anything like that. So, yeah, so that was just, to me, that was what that painting was, a shattering of everything I believed this country should be, or I believed it was. And it was also an awakening that there's a lot of work to be done, because I still have hope that we can be something better. I have a lot of hope. And I guess that's where I love young people, young activists. I love people who are young people who are outspoken, or who can bring those emotions into their artwork, or into their writing, or into their acting, or whatever it is, you know, they do to express themselves. I just have a lot of hope that they are going to be able to make the changes that we have failed at. So I feel like I owe young people a lot, you know?
That was great, and the piece is also beautiful. I can see it here in front of me, and I noticed that you created it almost like a retablo.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes.
yeah? Is there anything you sort of want to say about that for somebody who maybe doesn't know that much about the type of artwork that retablos are, what they're for?
You know, retablos are so cool, and I didn't really learn about them till I moved here to New Mexico. And I had seen that they were used a lot with portraying religious icons, um, a lot of santos. What they basically are, they tell a story. They represent um, causes, really, is what they are. Um, Causes and beliefs. I just thought they were really they seem, I don't know, I don't know for sure, but they seem very unique to this region. And I've seen them done in different ways, retablos and ex votos, which are wonderful because they basically tell a story. Some of them make a request. Some of them are used in ways to put in your home, and um, to not to pray to, but to remind us. But as far as the retablo style is just it's to me it's very distinctly um, it's regional and cultural, and to me she was like I don't nobody want well I'm torn sometimes between my Catholicism and myself, but she was martyred not by choice. You know, um she represents to me hope, I guess. Um Much as a retablo, you know, of St. Jude, of Our Lady of Guadalupe would, you know, I'd look at her and see what was lost. I wanted her to just represent somebody, something that was important.
Well, I think you certainly accomplished that. It's a beautiful piece. I do want to ask you a little bit about the borderlands, which I've read up a little bit about you, and I've seen it come up a few times. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your experience, and you sort of have throughout this whole conversation, of the New Mexico borderlands, and sort of how it affects your perspective as an artist and how you incorporate it into the art that you create, which you mentioned a little bit, but if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Mhm. Um, I love living here. I love being close to the border. I love the way the cultures have infused, how so much of Mexico is right here, but so much of us is over there too. You know, I love the fusion and I feel it. And I've always wanted to be involved in border issues because I've always been very sympathetic to the plight of immigrants. Isn't that what this country's about? You know, uh, how many immigrants came through Ellis Island? 60 million immigrants? I don't know. Um, but that's what we're about. You know, people come here looking for a better life. They're not looking to do crime. They're not looking for free stuff. You know, they want to come here. They want to work. They want lives. They want to be able to lay their heads down on a pillow at night and not worry about, you know, is my dad going to be here the next day, you know? Um, but I found that I always knew I wanted to be near the border. So when the opportunity came up 20 years ago, when my husband got a job opportunity, and also my whole family being from this area, so I've heard Las Cruces so many times from my grandma. Um, it was like, I think this was meant to be. So when we came here, it started out with, you know, oh my gosh, I love the border. I love the border. I love going to Juarez. I love, you know, our house is filled with things from Mexico. Um, uh, I love everything about it. It's a connection with my culture, with my roots that I didn't feel when I was in Los Angeles. I It was different. It was a different feeling. I don't know. When you came here, the connection to Mexico was very strong. I felt the pull of it. Um, but then along after all the fun stuff, you know, after all the shopping and the eating and all that fun stuff, comes the real issues, you know, the issues that people are dying here. You know, people are dying to get here. When you cross that border and you see those pink crosses and those nails in the crosses, and you know that there are more things going on under the surface than we know, and they're important things. There's a cry here. There's a need to be seen by people here who are not being seen. Um, there's a need to know that people that they matter. Um, and I think I'm talking mostly here about the immigrants who come here and maybe just disappear, you know. they need to be remembered, you know, and because I don't know all the stories and because I don't know all the names, you know, I have to put it, you know, in the names that I do know, you know, in Claudia's, you know, I know her. I feel like I know her. And when I painted her, I feel like I maybe gave a face or a name to people whose names I don't know, if that makes any sense. There's so much going on here under the surface that needs to be documented, that needs to be acknowledged, that needs to be given value, you know, to all of those who have lost their lives trying to get here, all of those who are trying to get here. And the only thing I can do is try to give it a humanity and not just call them the caravans or the immigrants or the illegals. You know, that they all have stories and they all they all come from somewhere. They're somebody. You know, they're not just, it's not just a horde of immigrants or a horde of people. They are individuals. And if I can give at least some of them, make somebody stand up and take notice, then I feel like I'm doing something with my artwork at least. So, because I feel every day that I don't do enough. With artwork, it's so powerful. Artwork is so powerful, and people respond to it, and it makes people ask questions. And I feel like I need to take what I know, I need to take the artwork, and I need to make it relevant. Not because I want a name. I do not want fame. In fact, I love being in the background. I don't want people to even look at me. But look at the artwork and just ask why and what does this mean and why did you paint this, you know? And maybe I can help give a name and a story to people that you would otherwise never hear about. So yeah, I love living here though. I do.
And then the last question I have for you today, and it's something that you've touched on a lot throughout this discussion, in your discussion about younger people or maybe students, is what advice do you have for student artists that are interested in exploring political issues through art?
Oh yeah. Um, find your passion. Find what moves you, whether it moves you to tears or it moves you to rage. Um, there are so many things to fight for. There are so many injustices, but pick and choose your battles, you know, because if you try to stretch yourself too thin, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. You know, there's so many things I want to fight for, but my focal issue is border injustice. Um, but pick and choose your battles, find what really moves you, and then jump into it. But also on the other hand too, you've got to educate yourself. You got to educate yourself on your subject. And the one thing I've learned is, like, you can't be an ignorant rebel. You can't. You have to know your subject. You have to know the facts. You can't just jump into there because somebody else said it. So, you know, if somebody tells you a story and it moves you, start researching, find your facts, get the facts to back you, then fight like hell. Um, and young people, gosh, you have this, you have the energy to do it. Young people are innovative, and I think they can often surprise themselves because they don't realize how really powerful they are. Find your passion and go for it. Just go for it. Don't wait. Do not put it off, because then you'll be like me and you'll be a 55-year-old activist, you know, trying to protest when your knees are killing you. So, you know, when you're young, do it, go for it and fight. And It'll take you in all kinds of directions. You will meet the most amazing people along the way. And all of these things will help, will enhance your own life by the people that you meet and the things that you do and the things that you're going to see. So go for it.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful and very insightful. And we really appreciate your time and for being our first artist
Oh,
interview.
I know.
This
Exciting,
was
huh?
great.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool.
Adelante.
Adelante.